Welcome everybody to the Captain Spot. I'm your host Justin Freeman, 6'1", 275 pounds, fantasy knowledge. It's week 13. It's Sunday night. It's AFC West. It is Broncos at Chiefs. We're talking about a game with a 51.5 point total. Chiefs favored by 13 because, of course, it's Patrick Mahomes against one of the worst offensive defensive units in the league. Division rival, Denver Broncos. This game will be in Arrowhead. It looks like it should be a runaway. Chiefs should just dominate this game whistle to whistle. That gives us some unique game theory options in terms of how we approach this in, Captain Spot, Showdown, DFS, MVP level over on FanDuel, wherever you're playing. We want to make sure that we are, taking advantage of the known game script. And this looks like a fun chance, to exercise those game theory chops. Before we hop into the slate too deeply, quick reminder, go check out cptspot.com. You can get some pretty exclusive offers, including $34.99 for the Captain Spot ebook. Make sure you want to pick that up. Everything you could ever hope to want to know about Showdown DFS. That's enough of the sales pitch. Let's hop right into the slate, starting with the injury report. There are 3 injury news and notes relevant to the fantasy slate here tonight. Clyde Edwards-Helaire being probably the most notorious of the group. He is questionable, and it looks like possibly truly questionable here with an illness. Missed a couple days of practice. Philip Lindsay and Jerry Jeudy also on the injury report listed as questionable. I think both those guys are expected to play. So it's CEH who is the guy we will want to be keeping an eye on here in this game. Again, remember, 51.5 point total. Pretty large total. And, Chiefs are 2 touchdown favorites in this game. I think, when I mention game theory here and think about roster construction, obviously we're thinking about ways to get in as many Chiefs and as few Broncos as possible in this game, given where we think the production is going to go. This Broncos team is not very good. I think, if we're expecting the way this game is most likely to flow, it's, Chiefs are covering whistle to whistle. And, it's a good situation for the Chiefs to be in. 2 touchdown favorites. Doesn't get much better than that in the NFL. So, we can pretty much start Xing out players from the Denver side of the football from the player pool, one by one, methodically throughout a process. Obviously some of this is going to be price driven. Some of it's going to be a matter of how expensive the Chiefs are, whether or not we can work all those guys into the lineup the way we want to. It starts sort of at the quarterback position where we've got Patrick Mahomes priced at 13.2 versus Drew Lock at 9.2. So $4,000 savings for Drew Lock. Is Drew Lock worth it in this particular game? Obviously, the Broncos are coming off one of the more embarrassing games in NFL history through no fault of, possibly through fault of their own, but we won't get into those details, as they had no quarterback available to them. NFL made them play with Kendall Hinton as their starting quarterback, a guy who was a wide receiver on the practice squad. Just a tough scene for Denver last week, but so, basically we have to throw out all the data that came out of that game, but we'll have Drew Lock back under center here this week. And, we've seen Lock throw for monster yardage and garbage time, but not through, the traditional first 3 quarters of the game. So maybe we get that again. And honestly, we are playing, a pretty high variance game here in Showdown. It may be made even more high variance by trying to project out what the garbage time production could look like for Denver. Because we know where the usual suspects are on the Kansas City side. We know Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Nobody's getting snuck up on by Patrick Mahomes. We know those guys. But whether the garbage time 40-yard bomb from Denver goes to Tim Patrick or Jerry Jeudy is going to change the dynamic of the slate. So keep that in mind. I'd say this is a slate where you want to build a lot of lineups. That Chiefs side is going to be, pretty tightly clustered. The production doesn't get too far outside those core guys. But you could also think about a situation in which the Chiefs are pulling starters late into the 4th quarter. In that situation, maybe Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce aren't even on the field. Maybe we're getting a lot of Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson as sort of the new starting options out there for Kansas City in that situation for a quarter, like a full quarter. And, and maybe we're not even getting Patrick Mahomes. This is a little presumptuous. I mean, it's putting a lot of stock into the Vegas total, but overall, I just want to, caution everybody about how variant a slate like this can be. When we're talking about fourth quarter garbage production, there's literally no telling where it could end up going. So just make sure you have some guys who may be involved in that type of situation as well. So I don't have to get too deep into the quarterbacks. We know one has an uphill battle and one should coast throughout. I still think Patrick Mahomes is going to be a core part of what you're going to want to do offensively. He's the guy who is going to get them up to this 2-touchdown lead, and probably beyond that, at least in my personal opinion. Looking at the running back position, figuring out CEH and Le'Veon is an interesting situation. If CEH sits, if CEH costs $8,400 on this slate and Le'Veon $2,400, and we see just an increased load for Le'Veon Bell, hey, that's a good situation for us to be in. Le'Veon becomes a bit of a no-brainer there at $2,400, and essentially a full-time role. We'll expect him to split some with Darrell Williams, but that's really about it. Maybe a little bit of Darwin Thompson could mix in, but honestly, I would just limit your player pool to Le'Veon Bell and Darrell Williams in that situation. Obviously, that news will come out finalized 90 minutes before lock. Always want to make sure we're checking up on that. In that running back situation for Kansas City, you're trying to figure out what does that look like in a situation where they are just dominating and it's the fourth quarter. Are they just going to feed those guys? And that hasn't really been their MO unless it's like literally the last drive or two of the game and the game is clearly out of control. Like they like keeping their foot on the gas via the passing game. So, I don't project Kansas City to be like super run heavy in games where they're favored by tons of points. I just don't think that's the way they want to play. So overall, I tend to want to fade those running backs for Kansas City unless a situation where CEH sits and then Le'Veon becomes really just too cheap to keep on the bench. So really interested in Le'Veon at $2,400, maybe even regardless of how this game goes. I think he could be a core piece of what you're looking to build there. At the receiver position for Kansas City, Tyreek costs you $12.2, and he's just been absolutely nuclear over the last month. And his production has been, on the back of some really elite number target market share numbers. 41%, 32%, 33%. That's way up from what he was averaging first month of the season. Like if I compare that to his first 3 weeks, 19, 24, and 15% of the team's targets. Now we're at 41, 32, 33. Big difference from, opening part of the season to where we are now for Tyreek Hill. So overall, he's in a great spot and not worried about Denver as a matchup or anything like that. Really just worried about, how diverse this team can be at times. Like sometimes we see DeMarcus Robinson get involved. Sometimes we see Mecole Hardman get involved. We hadn't talked about Sammy Watkins, but Sammy Watkins, 7K, could get involved as well. Watkins probably one of my less preferred options in this particular game because at $7,000 he's far more expensive than DeMarcus Robinson at $4,800 or Mecole Hardman at $4,400, and he's a type of guy who might be like the first guy they would take off the field in a situation where they are comfortably ahead. Sammy Watkins is super fragile guy, and they try to get him out. If you see Sammy Watkins catch a football, he almost always falls down immediately. This guy's not trying to go out there and break tackles. Dude's just trying to stay healthy, catch the ball, fall down, get to the next play. At least that's what I see when I turn on the film, all 22, and watch Sammy Watkins play. So overall, I am interested in Hardman's splash playability at $4,400. He's just not out there on the field enough. Only 30% of the snaps last week, 22% the week before. It is DeMarcus Robinson who is clearly the number 3 wide receiver in this offense. So it's Robinson that would edge out Hardman for me, even with the $400 salary addition to DeMarcus Robinson. And again, I think you project DeMarcus Robinson to be out there all 4 quarters no matter what the scoreboard says. On the Denver side of the football, Melvin Gordon, $7,800, Phillip Lindsay, $4,200. Man, I'm just not super interested on either of those guys. I think this game gets sideways and they get relegated to, some really inefficient opportunities on the field. Royce Freeman, $800. I don't think you can play him. Noah Fant now, $5,000. We're in the wheelhouse now. Noah Fant sees strong usage for a tight end. He's averaging 19% of the team's targets on the year. I would project that to be right around 20 here in this game, so right there with his typical average. And I think you can beat Kansas City in that area of the field. I think that's somewhere you can succeed if you're Denver. And he's an athletic guy. And we're talking about if Kansas City is just giving them buffer and giving them space, Noah Fant can beat you on any level. So I like that versatility there for Fant. He's like one of few tight ends in this league that could actually like rattle off a 70-yard touchdown on a catch and run. He's just that type of dude. Now, at the wide receiver position, it's Tim Patrick, it's Jerry Jeudy, it's KJ Hamler, who are out there the most for Denver. And Jerry Jeudy's just not had as strong of a role as you would hope over the last couple games, as the usage has gone down, but that may have something to do with the scoreboard as well. Just a couple weird games there for Jerry Jeudy. So overall, I prefer Jerry Jeudy over Tim Patrick, 5,400 to 4,600. However, like I said, we're kind of dice rolling there on the Denver side. I wouldn't put too much faith into anybody. Fant would be my favorite there for sure there for Denver. You can consider playing a guy like Tyree Cleveland, who came in and played 26% of the snaps. If you're trying to get weird, $200 for Tyree Cleveland. And I think you're going to want to make sure that you have your defenses and kickers exposure in this game as well, just a little bit. I think, we always say defenses tend to be overowned, so don't go crazy playing, Denver defense as part of your portfolio of exposure. So why don't we take a look at the captain exposures here for this week, where it is Patrick Mahomes, once again, who pops up as the lead option here. And Patrick Mahomes, a guy who's has an ability to create points on the ground. We see Patrick Mahomes scramble into the end zone when they get down inside the 5. That's something he has in his toolkit. But he can also pay off Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and at least one other pass catcher, all in the same game. And that gives Patrick Mahomes elite level ceiling. And we don't often get the quarterback captain preferential there, but we have it here with Patrick Mahomes. And in fact, it's Tim Patrick who's our number 4 option. So we get 3 Chiefs there on the list before we ever get to Tim Patrick. And this is assuming Clyde Edwards-Helaire plays in this game. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. We will know for sure 90 minutes before this game starts. If he doesn't, that makes Le'Veon Bell much, much more interesting. So you think about what you have to do with the Patrick Mahomes captain lineup. You have to be playing a variety, at least 2, and probably as many as 4 pass catchers would pair up well with Patrick Mahomes in this particular contest. We want to be heavy on 5-1 roster construction. That is 5 Chiefs, 1 Bronco in this game. A little bit less on the 4-2, and probably very little unbalanced in favor of the Broncos. Let's look at the flex, where obviously Patrick Mahomes clearly, just has to be in your lineup. There's really very little way that he is not in the winning lineup. Just don't even think too hard about that. Your only decision with Mahomes should be whether he goes in your captain spot or not. So if you do flex him, it would be Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and then KJ Hamler there, perhaps surprisingly, but maybe not considering his price. KJ Hamler, $1,800, and is running as the pretty clear-cut number 3 receiver at this point in the offense, along with Patrick and Jeudy. Deshaun Hamilton, I suppose, is right there, but give me Hamler and his upside any day of the week. So Hamler goes right there, and then it's Drew Lock. So Lock, we usually see the quarterbacks as the top 2 options here on the flex appearances. Not for Lock. Lock is such a dog in this game. It's completely possible that he doesn't even find the end zone. So overall, after that, it's Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell. So back-to-back Chiefs running backs right there. So I think could be important for us to get at least one of those guys in the game. And you can see, even in a situation where we expect Le'Veon and CEH to play, Le'Veon right there with CEH in terms of likelihood to be in the flex. So overall, maybe that's a good sign for Le'Veon, especially given what we expect that to look like if CEH misses. So overall, that's a lot of information. Again, I want to harp on the fact that we are focusing on Chiefs onslaughts. Basically situations where we are playing as few Broncos as possible, getting as much exposure to that prolific Chiefs offense as we can. I think if we do that, we'll have a pretty good week overall. So that's going to do it here for us on the Sunday night show. Tune back in tomorrow for the Monday night show. We'll be located over on the Mayo Media Network. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video. Appreciate everybody tuning in. See you guys tomorrow. Later.